Okay, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, here we go again. We have, again, you hit the play button, so you already know what goes down here. We are here to tell you, indirectly tell you, virtually tell you, however you listen to us, understand that you are not alone in all of the challenges and all the things that you may be going through in life. One of the pillars actually to this company is dealing with rejection. And today I have a Jeremy Haselwood who has certainly knows a thing or two about that, has been booed off stages, has tried starting businesses, has done a lot of great things. And even more importantly, he actually has an acronym. Again, you guys are getting ready to learn another acronym from an expert and somebody who's been there. But, you know, most importantly, he was telling me before we started recording that he is actually a Longhorn fan. It's like, no,
Man, I never said that's not what I said. That is not what I said.
Because you know what gets me though, and I hope we don't get too off topic here, is we're not
No.
going to see the Red River rivalry anymore. You know, I'm a Michigan fan, and we are recording this the week of us playing Texas, so we're gonna kick their ass for you, man. So I was just going.
No, we will though. They are still gonna play though.
They're still gonna
They
play
play this year in October.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen. All right, bet.
The OU OSU won't play anymore, unfortunately.
Right.
But Red River rivalry, don't take that away.
Yeah. All right, so just so we're clear, folks, he is a diehard, like you guys know, I'm a Michigan fan. He is a diehard OU Sooners fan from Oklahoma.
That's true.
That's it. If you watch some video, you see the helmets, his son played there, the whole thing. So all that being said, Jeremy, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you.
Cool. I appreciate that. Sorry to have to, inject my voice early before you even said my name. So thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
That's part of what we do here, man. We don't want it to be robotic. We keep everything organic. We want guests to understand, look, your family now that you've entered the Move Swiftly world. So, let's start from jump, man, because you started off actually doing something that I do truly respect when it comes to trying to break into the music industry. When we're talking about dealing with rejection, I believe it was like you were 20 years old and you decided to pursue a career in the music world, and that obviously didn't end. I don't know, how you were pursuing that, but telling someone that that's what you want to do, probably 100 people tell you, come on, man, come on, like there's no way you can do it, but you pursued it anyway. So let's just kind of start off from there, kind of talk a little bit about that point in your life and how you were able to bounce back and go through a lot of different things, man.
Yeah, man. So, being from Oklahoma, it's not necessarily a hotbed for the kind of music I pursued, which was hip hop. And also me being a white dude, it's like, okay, so you have a lot of things that you're trying to really do that are unconventional. But for me, it was like, I love the art. I love the poetry. I love the expression. And, it was something where I was like, when I started making music with a friend of mine, like the reaction we would get from people was pretty incredible. It gave me fuel. It gave me life. So I was like, all right, there's something here.
I have to pause because you made a really strong point, or we're not even 5 minutes into the episode yet, and you made a really strong point that has to be emphasized to the listeners. Hip hop has nothing to do with skin color. Hip hop has nothing to do with anything that where you're from or who you like. It's about, like you said, the poetry, the actual meanings of putting words together and doing something productive and having a creative way of thinking. I get what you see on TV. I get the way that people have turned it into something that has any association with skin color, but this is something that's touching the world. And that in itself, like what you're talking about, is really profound because too often do people look at a certain art form and they think only a certain color or a certain demographic of people can like it, which essentially holds people back. So I just had to make that point so we're clear in case it got brushed over later. But anyway, go ahead.
No, for sure, man. So, it's kind of like this calling where I wanted to see how far we could take it. I was like 15 years old. Like that's when I started writing music and saving money, busting tables and doing studio time and all that. Yeah. And got to a point where I was like, if I'm going to really do something with this, I've got to get out of Oklahoma. So it was either like New York, LA, or Atlanta at the time. Like New York is too cold for me. LA is too Hollywood. Atlanta was just starting to come up. Like, Outkast was really making noise. And it was before Atlanta became what it is today. And it was trying to figure out its voice. And it kind of reminded me of like old school hip hop when everybody kind of had their own little flavor and flair. Whereas the East Coast had a sound at this point, West Coast had a sound, and I was neither of those. So I was like, Atlanta just seems more like the spot. So You
Well,
know,
I grew up in the East Coast, and actually, it wasn't
mm,
until ATL came out where I really realized that that actually is a kind of a hotbed, not even necessarily for the rap, the hip hop per se, but a lot of
yeah.
cultural icons. I remember Tyler Perry was homeless there, and then he built
Mhm.
his studio. I actually visited there last summer for the first
Oh,
time, and
cool, cool.
Aunt was
Yeah,
telling me, yeah, there's a lot of cultural things, excuse me, that are
yeah.
here in Atlanta and landmarks and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, you got the birthplace of MLK down here, huge civil rights. I mean, it's just it's a glimpse of America here in Atlanta, and it's a part that isn't really talked about enough. We talk about the music a lot, but we don't necessarily talk about the culture as much.
Exactly.
But there was something that drew me here. And also I had an aunt that lived down here. She still lives down here. So I was like, we can stay with her she was gracious enough to let us stay with her for a summer.
Hmm.
And my friend and I moved out here. First show we did was like an Apollo style show where you could get booed off the stage and presented by like the hip hop radio station at the time. And we ended up winning that contest. And so we were like, all right, well, we're gonna stay here. We followed this dream and we're gonna see what happens because we don't really have this opportunity in Oklahoma. So that was kind of the first thing, was just pursuing that dream and taking that action to not let this be something that stirred in me and in us and not do anything about it.
Hmm.
So kind of answered that call to adventure, answered that call to passion, just to see how far we could take it.
Okay. So that happens. And how far did you actually end up taking it? Because
Yeah.
when I was doing my research on,
Mhm.
everything you went through, I realized that there was a point that you did get booed. And there, just to
Mhm.
preference it, it's difficult because for me, and you may not believe it or not, but there was a point where I wasn't a great public speaker and I had to go out and learn Toastmasters and I had to figure out how to really
Mhm.
engage the audience. And when you're talking about your creativity and putting words out there and then having to actually get on a stage, I
Yeah.
believe it was Monique who introduced you or whatever it is. And
Mhm.
then you see all these people, it's like, oh man, you forget the creativity. Now you got to publicly speak. So speak a little bit about the growth
Yeah.
and development that you had from that stage to when you just kind of hung it up.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, when we moved to Atlanta and decided to stay, at this point it was like, we got to get jobs and all that because you got to support your
Great job.
lifestyle. Yeah, got to get a job. And, the glamour and glitz of Atlanta that you move to becomes like, this is your life now. And it's not as fancy. But,
All right.
I was very driven. I finished college out here. I finished up at Georgia State.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, it's like I'm going to school full time. I'm working full time for a telecom company. And then we had a studio. Like I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but I used student loan money to purchase my studio equipment. So we had like a studio in our apartment. So we were
Uh-huh.
recording and literally performing any and everywhere in Atlanta that we could.
Yeah.
And we did this over the course of several years. We ended up being managed by, one of the radio hosts down here in Atlanta, which was good, connected us with a lot of people. And even the
Uh-huh.
way I look at it, it's like we had some mild successes. Like looking back as like an independent artist, we put out a couple of independent albums. Actually had a song on the radio back in Oklahoma that was connected to Oklahoma football that was based on the spins in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, was like number 98 in the country on the pop radio charts, which is
Those were the
crazy. But
probably the what Bob Stoops days, huh?
yeah, it was Bob Stoops days. Yep, yep. It was called Sooner Bounce. And then we had a song called Sooner Girl. So we had like two, like, because one of them took off. We're like, well, let's do another one next year. So, like, for about 2, 3 years in a row, we did a song. Ended up performing down at the Orange Bowl, not on the field, but like the official pregame with
Yeah.
like Big Boy from Outkast and I think Jessica Simpson, Trace Adkins. But we had like open up for them, which was really cool. And then it's like we did like a Spike TV reality TV show for like one episode.
Mhm.
It was called oh man, what was it called? I can't remember what it's called off the top, but that's because I'm thinking about many other things. But in the show notes, I'll try to remember what it was called. But either way, man, so we had some successes and ended up auditioning for Showtime at the Apollo in New York. They loved what we were doing and invited us up. And we performed at Showtime at the Apollo, and we were on stage maybe about 48 seconds before we were no longer on the stage. We were booed off. And the way I look at it, to me, is like, hey, we were booed on national TV. The video footage is out there. I have zero regrets. Everything that we did, I wouldn't have done a thing different. You know, I mean, it's hard on Apollo anyway, especially like for rap artists, it's hard. And then like, unfortunately, like based on skin color, it can be difficult in Harlem as well, unless you just can like have pipes that can sing and sound like the voice of God on that stage. You know, it's a really difficult crowd. But I'm like, Lauryn Hill got booed off.
Yeah.
All these big celebrities have
Me
gotten
too.
booed
Yeah,
off. So I'm
Jamie
like,
Foxx has
hey,
been
I'm in
booed
good
off.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx got booed off. Now, out of
Yeah.
curiosity, though, was this before or after social media became the thing? Because nowadays,
Mhm.
you get. I'm curious now. Do you think things would have been different for you had there been YouTube or Instagram
Mhm.
promote your stuff and sample your stuff and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have gone differently. To say it
Right.
would, like, you know, there's really no way to tell for sure. But even like, you know, as I look back, I'm like, man, if we really had social media at the time, like we had MySpace and that was pretty much it. But even, you know, like
Yeah, you
MySpace,
have to get the whole
yeah.
computer, and I don't even know if they had
Right.
at that point.
Yeah, but it was
Okay.
really like before YouTube really started jumping and
Mhm.
yeah, so no, we didn't have it like we do now, but looking back, I was like, man, there could have been a whole lot that we could have done, just like
Right.
even showing behind the scenes, being in the
Mhm.
studio, showing performances.
Mhm.
But honestly, man, it's like I have zero regrets about any of it. I'm like everything that I did with the music industry
Right.
and performing and because I produced all the music, produced it,
Right.
mixed it, like
Mhm.
everything. So it translates to everything that I'm doing now as like a marketing
Exactly. And
consultant and
that's actually
author.
exactly where I was going to go next because again, and this is another lesson for you listeners out there, what may feel like a failure per se is actually
Hmm.
a setup. The setback, I say it all the time, the
Hmm.
setback is actually the setup because you're putting your own stuff out there. You're not in some ridiculous contract where some manager is taking 50% writing your songs and then you got to be
Yes.
the talent. And then, I mean,
Yeah.
also the shady shit that goes on in the music industry.
Yeah.
You actually were the owner of your publishing and your content and all that. And that
Yes.
translated into the world you're in now, where you're helping
Hmm.
people with their digital marketing and you have books and you have intellectual property and all that stuff you kind of
Yeah.
already know on the back end. So walk us through that transition where you were able to say, look, all right, good, I did this, but look how much stronger it actually made me. Let me put my own books out there. Let me really show people all of the facets and the talents that I got.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a few years of transition
Mm.
to start the journey that I'm on now.
Right.
Because once we hung it up with music, I wasn't really sure what to do, you know, because I had moved to Atlanta. Like my whole family and everybody was back in Oklahoma,
Oh,
and
yeah.
my friend was still out here in Atlanta.
Mm.
But it was like, I don't want to do this anymore because it became almost like a job I hated.
Right.
So I was like,
Now you were still
ever
working
since
regular 9 to 5 at that point.
yeah, yeah, still working regular 9 to 5, but it was like I moved my whole life to Atlanta because this was my dream.
Yeah.
And this had been my dream for almost 15 years. So now it's like, what do I do now? Because I bet everything on this and I'm not really sure. If I'm not doing music, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I went through several years of just trying to figure out what is my purpose? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Because I really thought this was it. I was so passionate about it. I was equipped with a talent with it, but it just didn't get me where I thought I was going to go. So a lot of questioning myself, like battling with like confidence and who am I? What am I supposed to be doing here? I know I had a purpose, but I didn't really know what it was for or what my purpose was. So just trying to take inventory, man. I ended up going back to school, getting my master's and worked for a few marketing agencies, which I always love marketing and business anyway. Like my undergrad was in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like I took time to really reflect and take inventory, and that's kind of like, you know, the foundation of the book that you know we'll talk about in a little bit. It is
Mm-hmm.
like kind of this journey that I went on of rediscovering myself and taking inventory of who I was, what my talents were, what I learned from the music industry, what really stirred my heart, and taking this and charting a path forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what led me. It took me maybe 3 to 5 years to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And when you figure it out, things don't just happen instantaneously, but at least it's
Right.
like, all right, we have a new starting line, you know, whereas before we're just like, we're not in the race. But now it's like, we know there's still a race to be run, but I know which race I'm in now. Whereas before I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
So when you got to that point, what were the specific skills that you knew you needed to develop if you were going to really pursue this thing?
Yeah, I think at that point I recognized that I want to do work that matters. When I looked at some of the things, the skills that I picked up from just my journey with music was organization, organization and orchestration, you know, from everything to organizing like a whole rollout of an album to orchestrating not just a song, literally orchestrating it and picking out every single instrument, playing the notes, mixing it to the right levels. That's one thing, but then it's like orchestrating the marketing of it, you know, how we look, the video shoots, the photography shoots, street team promotions,
And
how we're going to connect with people online. So
mm-hmm.
all these skills that I learned, but what I got from the music was when people would hear my song, and like some people were moved to tears by some of our songs. And to me, like, I was like, wow, to make something that touched or inspired somebody, I'm like, I want more of that. But it doesn't have to be with music. Now it can be like a message, like my
Mm-hmm.
message of hope and inspiration.
Right.
So those are the skills I picked up: organizing, understanding what it was that really stirred me. And that was
Right.
like affecting people, affecting for the better, like changing mindsets.
Mm-hmm. Now, all this is happening, and I have to ask this because I actually do aspire to be a father one day, and I know several of the
Yeah,
people that have been on the show. Actually, my
sure.
boy I just found out his wife is pregnant for the second time. Shout out to my boy
Wow.
Todd. Shout out to the girl
Awesome.
dad.
Congrats.
But you yeah, congrats, boy. Congrats, Taj. But you were telling me before we started recording that your son actually is played at Oklahoma, and I'm
Mhm.
curious now how you're
Mhm.
able to manage all of this going on, and then like, oh shit, I got kids to feed now, I got mouths.
Yeah.
How are you able to be able to continue to do the work and then still be there for your family, show up, and obviously have things transition the way they are transitioning?
Yeah. Well, part of that was like the gut check. You know, when my son came along, that definitely contributed to my shift in priorities because
Yeah.
it's like music is feast or famine. You know, people that are doing well are doing extremely well, but most people are not. You'll make some money here and there, but not necessarily enough to support you. So
Exactly.
everything became about this boy, you know, like how can I create a better life for him? Like what am I doing in my life now? Because music and stuff, like I like it, but I don't like the business of it. But
Yeah.
what can I build? What can I do that can build something for his future? So and even when my son, like early in his life, you know, I wasn't with his mother, so I'd have him like on weekends and in the summer.
Oh
But
man,
there were
yeah, that
times,
even oof, yeah, that's
yeah.
how I could
But
only
you know,
imagine.
yeah, there were times like I remember one time like I had a show and he was with me for that weekend. So,
Right. You have
you
to do
know,
it
I took him to my show and
yeah.
you know, he's back by the DJ booth. I'm talking to the DJ, hey man, like just hang with my son while we perform. And
All right.
then but he got to be there
Well,
and he
shout out to
does
you
have a memory of
for
that.
not neglecting your responsibilities and saying,
Nah,
look,
man.
you know what I'm saying? You have to, and that's another important lesson for you, man. Anybody out to go make a kid, it takes a real man to actually be
Mm,
there for the kid, regardless of what your personal dreams may be. Be
yeah.
responsible with your time to watch them, regardless of what's going on with the mother. And that's not even a topic right now. It's just, are you
Yeah.
there for the youngins?
Yeah, you know, and he became a part of that dream, you know.
Exactly.
So, you know, for that, and then like, you know, I'm married now, and we have a blended family. So my daughters are like, you know, I've been in their lives like since their childhood. So for them, to me, it's like inspiring because I know they're watching me, and I know that they're watching what I'm doing.
Right.
So I'm trying to live my life and do what I say I'm going to do, but also give them something to aspire to. It's like they don't realize it at the time, but actually this past holiday season we were all together and they said some very affirming things, how
Yeah.
kind of like they're inspired by what we do and they've seen how we move in the world. And so that's like the gratification, man, is like just knowing that what you do, like it does matter to your kids. They're always watching you, and when they see that you're doing something or accomplishing, like now they have a model, because a lot of people don't have that model. It's like if you don't have the model to achieve, then it affects your confidence as a person. Like, well, I've never seen it happen, so I don't think it can happen. But when you see people around you, whether it's your parents, your friends, your social circles, and they're doing things, you're like, okay, I see them doing this, so it is possible. So I'm going to go after it as well.
Yeah, you said the right word, man. They see everything. I teach now at a school that's K through 5, and it's a
Mhm.
brand new school. The way the school is set up is for us to attract a lot of broken homes, a lot of blended. Like we really monitor literacy rates, and there's a direct correlation between young kids who aren't able to read and the parents not being there. Like it's clear
Yeah.
with the results. So I see
Right.
it every single day, and
Yeah.
I'm affirming everything confirming everything you're saying is that they are watching everything, especially when you're an adult
Yeah.
that has energy, that has, ambitions, and you're still going after things yourself. They're going to
Mm.
appreciate that, whether they know it or not. They will appreciate that. So, all that being said, it kind of leads me into the next talking point with you is, finding
Sure.
your edge. You have an
Yeah.
acronym for that I've been dying to get to because I was listening to you on previous shows. And, when it
Mhm.
comes to these acronyms in this show, there's been a lot of them, man. There's been a lot of them.
Yeah.
You're the first one that has created an acronym with the word edge. So
Yeah.
I'll give you the floor to explain everything, how you came up with it, the book, the whole nine, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. So let's throw another acronym for your listeners in the mix. But before I tee it off, like
Yes.
I want to talk about like what edge means.
Yeah, go ahead.
The initial title of my book was Living on the Edge, and it took me almost 10 years to like from the time I started to the time I published to actually
Wow.
put it out.
10
And the
years.
reason of that,
Yeah, yeah. That's what's
yeah, but it was like I wrote on it for about
developing, right.
maybe yeah, like 5 to 7 years, and then I set it down because I felt
Yeah,
like there's more to this book, and I haven't lived
yeah.
enough yet to finish it. And Lord
Right.
willing, I'll have a long enough life to finish it, and it's not a manuscript that never gets published.
Yeah.
Um, but I picked it back up a few years ago. It's like it's time to finish it up. So
Mhm.
finished it up, and ended up changing the title to Finding Your Edge because I feel like the subtitle is How to Unlock Your Talent and Purpose. And I feel like you can't really live on the edge until you find your edge and understand what that even means. And even looking at the word edge, like edge is like it's the end of one thing and the beginning of another thing. So I look at like your life before you do this life transformational work is the end of one thing, and then after you do this life transformational work is the beginning of another. And kind of the edge is like that work that you're doing on yourself in between. Like when you're on the edge, this is the work you're doing on yourself. So the edge is also a model. And the model is this basically this life transformation model. And it starts with eliminate distractions, and then discovering yourself, generating goals, and enacting discipline. So it's one step after another. And it has to go in order because the first thing when you're doing life transformational work, you have to eliminate distractions. Like these things, these phones here, probably the top distraction for most people, not everybody.
Right.
But it's not just phones. It can be people. It can be food. It can be entertainment.
Mhm.
There's a lot of ways that distractions can find their way into your life. But once you wrangle those in and put boundaries beside those, then you can actually start the work of discovering yourself. And that can come through doing different assessments, doing counseling, having a coach, or just journaling and doing reflective exercises, but taking time to really learn who you are. Because I think most of us walk around just with our life experiences and our jobs and our families. We don't really pause and reflect on what our life has done to us and what we've learned and who we are, what our skills are, what our talents are, what
Mhm.
our deficiencies are. But understanding that and being able to put a finger on it and label it is very helpful with the next step, which is like generating goals. Because now, as you create your goals for your life, you're not coming from being on like the wheel and complacency. You're coming from a position of authority, knowing yourself better than anybody else. So now that you know yourself and you've done the work, your goals actually are connected to your purpose more.
Mhm.
And then like the last piece is like enacting discipline. So once you create your goals, how do you stay consistent with your goals? And you
Right.
being an athlete or former athlete, it's like, hey man, you got to get up and do those 2 a days in the summer, whether you want to or not, and
Right.
life is very similar. You're not necessarily doing 2 a days, but what are you doing today to
Mhm.
make sure that you're staying on track?
Right.
And to me, that's one of the hardest pieces because you can create goals and do all this work on yourself. But if
Mhm.
you don't have a plan to consistently put action behind it, you're never going to reach that next level.
Yeah, it's a fascinating acronym, and the question I would actually have for you is how are you able to connect it to people? Because I know this from experience with the acronym
Mhm.
SWIFTly. It's skilled, well
Mhm.
informed for a team, and then you lift yourself. And it's always a
Nice.
challenge in terms of, all right, I'm going to be a speaker and I'm going to take the vision that I have, whether it's through the books, whether it's through the podcast, or whether it's whatever it is I'm trying to serve people. I want to deliver this content to as many people as possible. How are you
Yeah.
able to do that? And like, who are you looking to work with when it comes to growing the mindset and
Mhm.
growing, your IP and things like that?
Yeah. For one, like workshops and
Hmm.
speaking opportunities, conferences. And there's a lot of conferences that have nothing to do with personal development. You know,
Right.
it could be about manufacturing or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's still people going to this. And the way that I position myself somewhat is like, we have to unfortunately use some of the buzzwords, you know, to whatever you got to do to get it in the door. So it's like we'll call it a self-care workshop.
Right.
So you can't have people.
Whatever's advantageous to you folks. You know, if you're a
Yeah,
real entrepreneur, you'll do what you got to do.
exactly. Because the main thing is like I want to get my message. I know what my
Yeah.
message does, and it is
Sure.
self-care.
Yeah. Exactly.
So when
Yeah.
I've done workshops, when I've done conferences,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, it may even like I'm a marketer, so I go to digital marketing conferences, but we still have human beings that are in marketing roles. So how can we build better people and people who are aligned with purpose? So, and how are they taking care of themselves? So that's one way is doing a conference like let's talk about self-care, and it'll be like finding your edge in manufacturing, you know, finding your edge in business and life in manufacturing or in marketing or whatever, you know, and that way people know off the get like this is really like a self-care workshop. And the times that I've done this workshop, like I've had people in tears come up to me afterward like you this was really powerful, or
Yeah.
questions that I asked, they're like I haven't thought about these things since my childhood, so like thank you. So that's one way, you know. I have of course my book. You know, other ways I'm doing it is just like conversations, man. Like when I was writing the book and telling people what it was about, they were like, that's where I am. It's people who are complacent in their jobs. Like they have a talent, they have a gift, but they're not doing anything with it, but they want to, you
Right.
know? But a lot of times we defeat ourselves and we're like, that's too hard, or it'll take too long, or I'm too old. And we
Right.
think of all the reasons that we can't progress in life. But it's like, no, man, like pause. Like
Yeah.
let's do the work and do something about it.
So the majority of listeners to this show are business owners of 20 or more employees because again, I do similar work in terms of hosting workshops, but it's more
Yep.
so the teamwork. And if there's anyone that's listening that may be more so interested in or like you just mentioned, has a staff or a crew that
Hmm.
walking around complacent, there's this country club atmosphere. I'm sure,
Mm.
again, big time college football coaches, you were used to coaches saying, hey,
Oh my
look, we got to
gosh.
pick it up. I don't care how well we did last week. It's a brand new week. We got a brand new schedule.
Yep.
What is and you sort of mentioned this a little bit, but I want to kind of give you some time to further elaborate on it.
Sure.
What is the overall thing that they're going to take away from a workshop or a talk or a keynote or anything that you may be offering when it comes to them bringing you in?
Yeah, I mean, my main message is really like how to get from point A to B. So,
Yeah.
living on the edge, recognizing your talents, helping to uncover your purpose. Like, I can't necessarily tell you what your purpose is.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't understand what theirs is, but they want to know. They want to live a life that is purposeful. So, the exercise that I take people through are helping them recognize their gifts and how to use these gifts in the world.
Right.
But of course, like my message is tailored, like depending on because I can do team
To the
building and all
person.
that.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, my global message is like life transformation. Like, let's
Mhm.
help you tap into your talents and purposes. That's it. And also providing hope. And I like to say like I'm a messenger of hope because life transformation, like I'm can tell you the tools that work for me. And if it worked for me, it can work for you. I'm not saying that
Right.
it will, but me speaking life and speaking hope to where you are right now doesn't have to be where you will be if you don't want to be. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to. And you know, sometimes like when I've talked to businesses, they're like, "Well, we what we're afraid of is you're going to come in and give this great message, and everybody's going to quit because they think like this is not my purpose." And I'm like, "No,
Right.
like
Which is a
that's
very
let's
pessimistic way to
reframe this."
think, by the way, that speaks to you.
Yeah.
If you're an owner, that speaks to your ability to lead and that's
Mm,
your mindset. So I'm just putting that out there because I've dealt with that
yeah.
objection as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is an interesting one. And I'm
Okay.
like, no, because we don't want them to. But what we do want is your employees to be fired up. And
Hmm.
we also want them, and I'm also cautious because I recognize that there might be people that they hear my message and they work for a company and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is what I wasn't created for. But I also try to bring my message into how can you be the best, not best employee like your program, but how
Right.
can you be happy and with your life and give more to your family. And I talk about the five forces of balance, which I can talk about that in a sec. But one of those forces is your professional life. So it's like your family, your profession, your health, your spiritual life, your personal life. So I consider these like the 5 forces of balance.
Right.
So when we look at how, as an employee, we're not trying to get your employees to quit. We just want them to be in a better state mentally so that they can be better for you. Because, it's the whole cliche, put up your own face mask on before helping others on an airplane. Like, if your employees
Mm.
aren't taking care of themselves, they can't be a better parent. They can't be a better employee for your company. And you'll actually get more out of them by doing this kind of self-care work.
Exactly. And it ultimately leads to a very, very toxic work environment, something that I could probably speak about upon hours. Me and you could probably talk about
Hmm.
hours upon hours on that specific
Yeah.
subject. But I
Mhm.
do want to be very respectful of your time. I saw you
Yeah.
have, like, when it comes to what's next for your company, I saw you have something called E.D.G.E Academy. Can you
Yeah.
just speak about what's next? What do you plan on, like, where do you plan on taking this vision that you have?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, so Edge Academy is really like taking my Edge framework and
Mhm.
doing more with it basically. It broadens the platform. It allows me to do coaching. So I have Edge Academy coaching where I can work one-on-one with people that just want like, specific help.
Right.
But then also providing online coaching programs and then bringing Edge Academy to you. If you have, we can do a workshop, half day, full day, multi-day, and
Right.
that will be part of Edge Academy as well. So it's basically providing resources that are going to help uplift and strengthen your employees, individuals, and help them to recognize their talents, their purpose. And ultimately, like, we want people to live a happy, fruitful life that they have affirmation that this is what they're supposed to be doing.
Right. And what is the best way if anyone's listening and they want to get in touch with you? Where do you normally send them?
Yeah, you can go to my website, jeremyhaselwood.com, and that's with the S. I always have to say that because if you're just listening, you're going to misspell my name. So,
Yeah.
so
That's something
Jeremy,
I'm very used to. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So Hazelwood, Haselwood. Also, like, I post a lot of content on Instagram. So Jeremy.Hazelwood on Instagram.
right.
I'm posting marketing tips, but also like personal development tips and even excerpts from the book. So, if you're not sure about the book, but you want to find out a little bit, you can actually get a free chapter of my book from my website.
There
So,
you go.
whatever, if you're in that phase right now where something's churning in you and you're feeling a calling to do something, like, do something with that.
Absolutely. And then all of that will be included in the show notes as well. So the final thing I do, Jeremy, to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are
Mhm.
20 years old, you're on your way to Atlanta. You don't know where this vision is taking you. You have a ton of things that you want to do. Pretend that 20-year-old version of Jeremy has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah, I will say, hey, it's me with gray hair. But no, but hey, you actually, life is going to be everything and more than what you thought it was going to be. It's not going to be easy. You are going to suffer some very serious setbacks and make you question everything about yourself, but hold on to what matters the most to you. Hold on to your family, your friends, your beliefs, and ride it out because you're being built up. This whole journey of life from your 20s and 30s and now 40s is like, it's fruitful, it's enjoyable, and it's well worth it.
Yeah, and I think it's only right that we officially close out the episode with something that my football coach actually told me, because you are such a big college football fan, is gotta grab the bull by the horns, baby. Gotta grab the bull by the horns. And I think he was actually from Texas, so there was a lot of OU stuff that we used to talk. So
Yeah.
all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
All right.